He's here.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
Hey, Doc. Welcome to town.
Thanks for inviting me in, Brian. Yes.
Well, yesterday I checked the Wellsville Regional News page, and it says, newsflash, rumors are Senator Young might be resigning today. Now, that was Thursday, yesterday, the 28th of February. Well, here we are on March 1st. Actually, it was 1 hour after that we got the news in from Spectrum that Senator Young was taking a job at Cornell University. Dr. Bob, you're in the know. What do we know?
Well, again, I haven't spoken with Senator Young, and so we don't quite know what the situation is. But I don't think there's any. First of all, it's a tremendous loss for Western New York and for the state. But that's politics in Albany. And the fact that she was doing so well, leading the Republicans, I think, in a very effective fashion, only caused her a lot of enemies. And I really am very suspicious of this guy Flanagan. I think his maneuvers and how he's handled the minority situation and the fact that he basically took Senator Young out of the Senate campaign in the middle of the summer with disastrous results. I mean, I don't know.
Republicans lost the Senate.
Lost by a huge margin. And their ability to recover the Senate, I think, is going to take, not that they can't, but it's going to take some time, and there's some other factors that are going to come into play. So that Senator Young looks at this, and she's getting unpleasantness from the Republicans, and obviously the Democrats are not going to give her the time of day. So basically she's boxed in this situation. Now, there's no question she can continue to be reelected as senator from her district here in Western New York. But it has to be pretty frustrating. And in terms of, I don't know what kind of salary offer, et cetera, he's gotten from Cornell, but it's something, her background is in, I think she's working in the agriculture area there.
Yes.
And, of course, she was raised as a farm girl up in Avon, so she's certainly got background in the whole area of agriculture and has a lot of contacts in the state. So she'd be a very valuable person for Cornell, I think, to speak for them. So I can understand why she did it. The other side of it is, of course, looking at 2 years down the pike, the Senate and the state legislature will both redraw, may well have to redraw their district lines. And obviously the Democrats in the state Senate, or if they have to redraw the lines, are not going to do anything to favor any Republican in that respect. So the prospects for Republicans generally politically are pretty grim right now.
In New York State?
In New York State, that's right. So
wow. That's
where it makes some sense. She certainly put in her time and delivered.
No, she took over in the 1990s for Pat Magee, was it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've been with her since she first ran for the state assembly. We went door to door in Andover together, and then Jess Present died, and then Pat Magee took his place, and then Pat Magee died, and she moved up to the state Senate.
So you were there before the Pat Magee years.
I'm sorry?
So you have known Senator Young since before she got into the state Senate.
Oh, yeah, we worked.
You go back to the assembly days.
To the state assembly, yeah.
And I was on her Too bad.
I was on her staff for a while in the state assembly, in fact.
Say that again. I was.
Yes, you were trying to talk over me there. I was on her staff in this when she was in the state assembly for a while, running around and filling in at meetings and things of that sort, which was interesting, but frankly, time and everything was a little more than I could put in.
Sure.
But she's been very effective, and it's just the politics in Albany are vicious, and so that's where we're left. Now the question becomes, what happens? Is the seat vacant right now? I'm not sure. Is there some sort of formal process? Yes.
I heard from a source of mine in Albany that the governor is expected to call a special election.
Well, you have to have a vacancy first, Brian. So has she formally resigned?
From what I read in the Spectrum story and from what I saw in her press release, it's going to be fast. Within the next 2 weeks that she'll be gone.
Okay. So there'll be a vacancy. Okay. So then so you think the governor will call a special election?
That's what I hear he's supposed to do. Can he stall on that for any?
Well, he could not do anything and just leave it empty. In which case, the people in Western New York would be without a representative in the state Senate, and the Democrats would have an even larger margin in the state Senate. So I think there's a lot of considerations there. There's no reason why he shouldn't go ahead and call a special election. But I can see where the Democrats would like to pick that seat up if they could. And Chautauqua County is a huge portion of her district. And the Democrats do have some clout over in Chautauqua County. So we'll have to see what the governor decides. Now, if he decides to go ahead and call a special election, then the county chairs meet from the district and select a candidate. And it's weighted vote. So, again, Chautauqua County, and I don't know what the weight is, whether it's by population or whether it's by percentage voting for a Republican candidate for governor. I don't know how they play that. But in any case, I would guess Chautauqua County would have a big chunk of that weighted vote. But on the other hand, Cattaraugus and Allegheny County, and then you throw in part of Livingston County, which she represents, you may be able to, offset that Chautauqua's advantage. The question is who would fill in there in that spot.
The two names that I've heard as the obvious choices from an Albany source.
Yes.
Assemblyman Joe Giglio and Chautauqua County, Jamestown Assemblyman Andy Goodell.
Yeah, well, I can see those names bounced around, but I do think that the chair of the Allegheny County Legislature has some interest in that spot. And I'm sorry?
That person's name?
Kurt Crandall.
Not really Kurt Crandall over Rob Christman? I would think Christman would be interested.
Christman is in the Khyber Pass in Pakistan right now. So I think he's busy with some other business at this point. And he is not...
Kurt Crandall.
I'm sorry?
So Kurt Crandall.
Well, I think he would be a viable candidate in that situation, yeah. Although I like Joe Giglio very much, don't get me wrong, and I'm not certain, I don't think he's actually made any indication whatsoever that he would like that spot. I mean, there has been sort of a tradition of moving up from the Assembly to the Senate, etc., but that's not ironclad by any means.
I've heard, not from Giglio and not from Giglio talking to anybody, but people guessing from two sources. Two sources guessed to me that they think it would be Goodell over Giglio, that Goodell would be more interested than Giglio right now.
Might be. No, I think I can see where Joe would say, I've got a seat here in the State Assembly, and I'm pleased with what I got. So I don't know. Again, that's all going to have to be worked out. But again, keep in mind, Brian, that in 2020, districts could well be redrawn. And so you could spend a lot of money and run and win and find out that your district is tied into South Buffalo for most of its voting population. Or who knows how it could be reworked. Certainly the Democrats are not going to draw any of these districts to favor the Republicans. So you got to take that into consideration too. Now the Goodells have been obviously a long-time political family, and from the Chautauqua area, his father or his grandfather, I think it was his father, was a U.S. senator, and was beaten by James Buckley there in that three-way race back in the 70s.
Oh, William F. Buckley Jr.'s brother, the judge.
They run that by me again?
William F. Buckley Jr.'s brother, the judge?
Yeah, I think he did become a federal judge then. Yeah, he was he was a U.S. senator and then lost in the next election. And,
hey, did you know William F. Buckley Jr.?
Yeah.
That's
and
interesting.
I knew his brother, James. James came out here and visited Alfred. We had dinner together, and
sure.
And very nice guy. And as was William F. He again, I don't want to get wild, but he came out here to give an address, a commencement address, and was guaranteed that he would be back in White Plains because he had people. Social gathering in White Plains that evening, and the commencement went on and on and on, and so I ended up driving him over to Wellsville to the airport, and of course he pointed out that he was going to be late. It was not going to. And we got to the airport, and he had his private plane there. And he gets out, and he invited us, both of us, up for a drink on his plane. And he said, "Well, come on in, let's have it." I mean, it was very decent of him all the way around. So they're, both pretty classy people. But be that as it may, do we have anything else to talk about here,
We
Brian?
do in segment 2. We're going to talk about Israel, Venezuela, Pakistan, India, and North Korea.
Wow, I don't know if that's a...
Stay with us.
Hello, this is Brian O Donovan, President and CEO at St. James Hospital. I would like to provide some exciting updates that are happening here.
We've expanded X-ray and blood draw services at the new medical office building, 7309 Seneca Road North. X-ray is open Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. and weekends at 10 a.m. Blood draw is open Monday through Saturday at 7 a.m. Just walk in. I welcome your feedback. Please feel free to contact me at 607-324-8113. Thanks.
Back with Dr. Roberto.
Just Bob is good.
Bob is good.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's start out with North Korea. Trump and Kim Jong-un both kind of amicably decided that they weren't getting the deal they wanted. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, again, we'll see how this all drifts out. But when you do this person-to-person kind of foreign policy, you run into that kind of problem. Typically, when you have these so-called summits, the underlings, the administrative people, hammer out the details, come up with basically kind of pretty good idea of what their final agreement's going to be, and then the major actors meet, shoot the breeze a little bit, and agree to what has been agreed to, and make a public signing, etc., etc. When you just kind of pounce in there and sit down and start chatting without this kind of background, then you could easily run into some roadblocks, and so there are all kinds of ways of interpreting this, and who knows what exactly happened. Maybe Trump will talk about it, maybe he won't. But I think you got a couple of problems there, and the big problem really is, in addition to the face-to-face approach, is the Chinese. And I don't think the Chinese, by any stretch of the imagination, really want to see a unified Korea. And so Kim Jong-un may well be getting some pressure from the Chinese there. And so the key thing is they keep talking, and they remain halfway amicable, and who knows, maybe this will work its way out. But you got to give Trump credit for trying to quiet this situation down, which he has done, I think. And the next real big issue he has to deal with here is the trade negotiations with China. Excuse me. Which I think one way or another he's going to end up with some kind of agreement there. So there's still quite a bit on the platter there. But no, your point there before we took our break, Brian, is that the world is in chaos in a lot of areas. The whole area in Venezuela, urging more and more the use of military force, which I think is a bad idea. Then you have, I think, Netanyahu. The chances of him being indicted in Israel are pretty high. Then you have the Pakistanis and Indians.
Pakistan says it shot down 2 Indian jets as Kashmir border crisis deepens. CNN.
Yeah. Well, it's a very touchy situation. Of course, both of them have nuclear weapons, and we certainly don't want them firing away in that respect. The impression I had was that they were beginning to back off a little bit and were looking to engage in some talks. Kashmir has been a very, very volatile sore spot since the very breaking up of Pakistan from India. As our listeners may know, Pakistan is heavily Muslim. India, of course, is heavily Hindu, and the Kashmir is in between them. And apparently a fairly wealthy province, but they just can't come up with any way of governing. And frankly, I don't know how it is being governed now, to tell you the truth, whether it's split up and you've got Indian and Pakistani guards on either side of a borderline there. I'm not quite certain how that's put together. But it's pretty sensitive, that's for sure.
Dr. Bob, I'll let you pick the next topic. Congressman Tom Reed or Michael Cohen?
I'm more interested in the presidential election myself.
Okay, we'll go that direction.
Well, it's just kind of interesting to watch. I think you see more and more there indications that the Clintons are becoming more active in the effort. And I think Bernie Sanders is going to pay the price of this because I think they and, of course, a lot of other Democrats very much like to get Bernie and, what's her name, Ocasio?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, out of the mix. And, of course, talk about left-wing cases. De Blasio is running around Iowa, the mayor of New York, thinking that maybe he should be running. So you got a real left-wing socialist cadre there that I think a lot of Democrats would like to sort of push off the table. In the latest polls I saw in New Hampshire, or was it Iowa? No, I think it was New Hampshire, had Joe Biden with something like 37% of the vote, and Bernie Sanders coming in fairly close behind him. I don't know, I think in the 20s somewhere. So Biden is, without even declaring or running, is up there quite a ways. And my theory, and this is totally off the wall, is that the Clintons will let Biden hang in there and declare, and once he gets in there, then they'll
step aside for Hillary?
They'll cut him. They'll undercut him, yeah.
Will he play along with this willingly? Or will
No, I don't think so. No.
Wow.
I think the big problem Biden has is basically he's, 77, 78 years old. He would be in his 80s in his first term there. And you know, of all the candidates, we've said this before, he's the most genial and most approachable. And, of course, he does have a strong background in Beltway politics. But knowing the Clintons, I think the chances of them letting him go through unscathed are not very high.
Who's more the senior statesman, Biden or Bernie?
Oh, Biden, no question about it.
You think so?
Oh, yeah, Biden's had a lot of experience with foreign leaders and things of that sort. The question is, I don't know how smart Biden is, to tell you the truth. I think he finished way down in his class at Syracuse, and when he was running for president, that one time he's copying the speech from this socialist labor leader over in England, talking about how his parents ran a store, et cetera, et cetera. It was almost word for word for the speech this guy used in England. So, but Joe's certainly a likable guy. But the point is, I think he'd be treading on thin ice if he gets out there very far. So it's fascinating. There's no two ways about it, and I hope it's entertaining and isn't tragic.
Can I get one Tom Reed question in?
Well, all right, go ahead.
Reed is trying to get a law passed. He's a co-sponsor here, but he's pushing it big time to take the power to declare a national emergency out of the White House's hands and put it in the hands of Congress again. Is he doing this because he sees that President Trump declared a national emergency on the border, and he sees, a future president, Ocasio-Cortez, coming in saying, "Aha! He did it. Trump did it on the border, so I have to do it a national emergency for this." Is that what Reed's up to?
Well, it has evolved into a institutional situation. And now the Democrats, of course, are trying to make this a constitutional issue, that somehow the president is overreaching, when if the Democrats in the first place had been willing to be halfway flexible and negotiate, this thing wouldn't have come up at all. The idea that they're blaming Trump in that respect, I think is once again the hypocrisy that you run into. But I think I disagree with Congressman Reed there on that approach. The whole idea of giving the president, John Locke, way back, English philosopher many years, centuries ago, made the point that you had to have a single executive, because there are times when the executive has to be able to act, and has to be able to act quickly. And when you insist that it has to be the legislature in real emergencies, the legislature has a pretty dicey place to go. Now they should have the right to overrule, and that's what they're going to try to do now. We'll see if the Senate has the votes to support what Trump has done, or whether the Senate will support the resolution out of the House overruling the president. But of course, the president in this situation will simply veto the resolution, and Congress is not going to pass it over his veto. So he's in the driver's seat right now.
You mentioned John Locke there, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, 1688 on that, yeah.
Did I ever tell you where I read his famous line, "What worries you masters you"?
I'm not certain John Locke said that. I think that was Sigmund Freud.
Oh, I got that off Google.
I have no idea. Yes. Any other trivia here?
No,
Brian?
I think it's time to go.
I think you got it right there.